Being a mountain biker in South Central Kentucky is a really awesome prospect. We got some great classic single track riding. We also got a scene that is growing at a near explosive rate right now. We've got little bike parks and jump lines popping up all over the place. On top of that, we actually have 4-season riding. Now, like most places, it does get a lot colder in the wintertime. And while we can get snow, as you can see, it's the middle of January, it certainly does not stay covered in snow. But the trade-off to that is it does get very wet in January, February, March timeframe, and that kind of kills the vibe on a lot of the trail riding. So this year, I wanted to take a page out of the playbook of those places that do stay covered in snow and try out some fat bikes. So here's the bike. It is a Norco Bigfoot, and they only come in aluminum. Turned it into a bit of a custom build. Got a great deal on a Salsa carbon fork to really help lighten the bike up, especially the front end, and also help kill some of the vibrations that you're gonna get, because obviously this bike is fully rigid, as most fat bikes are. So I decided to throw on some 5-dev shorter cranks. These are in an obscenely short 155 millimeter. And then the most obvious is this big honking set of tires. A lot of fat bikes on the market are still 26 inch. The Bigfoot comes with a 27.5 inch with a 4.5 inch wide tire. Let's go give it a shred. All right. I've got Lady Shredder with me. She's been on a fat bike, but only in the snow. It's gonna be first maiden voyage on any sort of trail riding. We don't have any goals, just let's go check these things out, have a good time. No suspension, by the way. How do you feel about that?
Not sure yet, I'll let you know.
We're at the Cane Creek section of the Sheltowee Trace near Laurel Lake. It's actually one of my favorite sections of trail in the whole area. One thing I learned last week when I took this thing out for the first time, it's actually weird how well you can trust these tires in a corner. I mean, 4.5 inches wide of just traction.
Wow, a little different.
A little different? Yeah. To my awareness, Ashley's actually never ridden a bike with no suspension. What do you think? She's definitely gonna have to get used to it. Man, it is super beautiful down here. It's part of why I just absolutely love this so much. This is one of those rides. It's definitely not a flow trail. It is chunky. It does not necessarily flow. There's just a lot of really cool scenic things. I mean, that water is just beautiful, blue, green. So through the roots, it doesn't have the feel that like a rigid bike, you know, I've done a lot of gravel biking, believe it or not. I've actually ridden a gravel bike through here. There's definitely a forgiveness here, obviously, that you would expect compared to a more typical rigid bike. I'm running 7 pounds of pressure, by the way, which is obviously where a lot of your forgiveness is built in. It's a super huge volume tire, so obviously you're gonna run a lower pressure. Loving these short cranks over these up and overs, by the way. But there is a bounciness. It's almost as if your suspension rebound is running as fast as it can, front and rear. Well, you can definitely bunny hop, even though it wasn't my best one ever. Woo! Here's a section that is tough to clear on a regular bike. It's
It's gonna be tough to clear on this bike because these roots are still, these rocks are still slick because they're wet. It's definitely, almost had it. But, you know, these are just more basic aluminum bikes. Obviously have some nicer parts slapped onto this one, but you know, the cost of entry is nothing near what the more typical full suspension modern day mountain bike is. Woo. Definitely handling these creek crossings with ease though. Now it's interesting, here I'm on a climb coming up out of one of these creeks. It's just almost like you don't super notice the heft of this bike. I think part of that is because you don't have a suspension bobbing underneath you. Plenty of traction on tap though.
Traction.
It's like probably one of the most scenic spots here. Man, I am absolutely loving these 155 cranks. Woo! It's a way bigger hit than I should have done. That one rocked the wrist a little bit. Noticed this the first time I rode this bike, trail riding it. On all the little roots and rocks, you know, you've got inherent suspension in these tires. When you go ahead and try to take some bigger drops and whatnot, it starts to lose that cushion. It just motors through all of this rough jank, keeps its composure, a little bouncy, but then the acceleration of it, there's like almost like a turbo lag. It's actually a bigger diameter tire than even a standard 29er. If you hold one of these, goodness gracious. Oh, I got it. Wasn't even prepared for it. That rear tire just will not lose traction. But yeah, if you hold this up to a standard 29er, the diameter is actually bigger. But again, the obvious, with that bigger contact patch and that bigger diameter tire, the rollover capability, you're rolling through chunky sections, just like unparalleled. I'm not sure how a 26-inch fat plays out. I bet it's close to the same size as a 29. You know, as far as cornering, it I guess it's obvious, like that bigger diameter tire. Whew. It feels a little bit more wonky on cornering, but again, just the whole experience is not as bad as what you would think. All right, let's see if we can get this done. Yes. Ha! Put a foot down there. Go back and try it again. There it is. Woo! I've always wanted to ride this. It's like always soaking wet. Just never have fully committed to it. Woo! Pretty technical section. Check this out. You really got to want some technical riding to come and want this place. I personally just absolutely love it. I'm the first in line for a good old high-speed flow jump line. Sometimes this is just such a nice change in pace, especially when those jump lines are soaking wet, not rideable. Actually just gonna park the bikes right here, walk and check the waterfall. Love it. Cool thing about this trail is it's really feature rich in both directions. It's definitely a little more downhill going in than coming out, but this really rides pretty cool both ways. Nice, nice, killed it. Very nice. Unfair, unfair. Oh, you made it. I just found something, a little extra credit line. All right, all mountain line on the fat bike. Let's see what it looks like. Whoa! Whoa! That was wild. Bunny hopping is a little bit more interesting because definitely still get it done. And I love going through these creeks. So when it gets time to put down some watts and get on up the hill, again, it's surprising how manageable of a climber these fat bikes are. Does it feel lightweight? Absolutely not. The best way that I could describe it is that it's absolutely manageable, much more so than you would probably anticipate if you've never been aboard a fat bike. All right, so there is the Cane Creek section of the Sheltowee Trace here just outside of London, Kentucky. This one really wasn't about the ride, more about just showing you what it's like to ride a fat bike on a trail ride. So hopefully I've given you at least a taste of what it looks like to do some good old-fashioned trail riding on a fat bike. Now, if you're someone that lives where you can ride one of these things in the snow on a regular basis, you already know that you need one of these. For everyone else, if you're looking for a simple bike that doesn't have a suspension to maintain and has a relatively affordable cost of entry, a good old regular aluminum fat bike might be what you're needing and didn't even know it. So for me, the bottom line is these things are actually way easier to pedal than what they look like, and they're an absolute riot to ride on the trail. It has a ride feel and grip and traction that is pretty much like nothing else that you've ever ridden. And specifically, I'm impressed with this Norco Bigfoot. It has a very dialed geometry, and probably the thing that I'm digging the most is the fact that it is actually a 27.5 and not a 26. That monster truck rollover is insane. So if you've got a little extra cash to buy yourself a relatively unique and
maybe way more practical than you would have otherwise thought, second or third bike, and you're looking for something that just gives you a change up to your riding, maybe think about a fat bike. I've been having a blast on this Bigfoot. Hopefully you found this review helpful. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. As always, thanks for watching.